Hi there, I'm Clarence Waldron. Thank you for coming back for another episode of Black Muse. But before we get started with tonight's guest, I want to give a special thank you to Howard Sandifer and his wife, Darlene Sandifer. They are the founders of the Chicago West Community Music Center. And this whole idea, this whole video podcast came from them. They said, let's have lively conversation with some of our favorite newsmakers. So let's do that. Tonight's guest is Heather Ireland Robinson. She's the executive director of the Jazz Institute of Chicago. She's going to talk about her work there. She's going to talk about some of the plans for next year, the exciting programs, and all that jazz. So let's get started. Heather, how are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for having me, and shouts out to the Sandifers, just the amazing work they're doing with youth on the West Side. I've known them for a long time, and I'm honored to be here and glad to talk to you. Thank you.
Ooh. What is the mission of the Jazz Institute of Chicago? What is the mission?
Yeah, so we were founded in 1969 to promote and nurture jazz in the city of Chicago, all forms of jazz, and we do that through free public programs, which includes the Chicago Jazz Festival and free programs in city parks, our Jazz City program, and a bunch of other public programs, and our education programs where we partner with schools. We have a jazz student council of young folks that are making music all over the city, and just a ton of powerful education programs for the next generation of musicians.
Wow. Now, when you first took over, your motto was you wanted to maintain, sustain, refresh, and grow. What did you mean by that?
So when I took on this position in 2018, in March of 2018, I stepped into the role of a predecessor that had been here, Lauren Deutsch, for over 30 years. She had been on the board. She was the ED for over 20 years, the executive director for over 20 years. So there was no way. I didn't even need to come in and change a bunch of things. I really wanted to capitalize on the strengths and the growth of the organization over the last 10 years, over the last 20 years, and, maintain what was good and make sure that that could be sustained into the future. We didn't know at the time that it would be 2 years before we were on lockdown and the world would change. So it was important to me to make sure we had the resources and the branding and the strength to keep that going for the next few years and then grow from there.
Now, I read that you're the first Black to hold this position. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Again, having someone in leadership for so long, she'd been in this role, like I said, for over 20 years. And this is our music, and was an amazing culture keeper, understood the history. For me, it became an even greater part of my personal mission and my personal philosophy that we keep telling the story of this being the music of African Americans. I grew up and was born and raised on the South Side of Chicago by a teacher mother and a pharmacist father who worked on the South Side as well. My father had a pharmacy on 71st and Jeffrey for years. My mother we lived and she worked in the Roseland community as a kindergarten and first grade teacher. So my grandfather was a podiatrist on the South Side. My grandmother was a social worker. So I have this deep legacy of community work, which growing up, I just kind of took for granted. Like, yeah, that's what we do, but it's a part of who I am. And none of us can say we grew up without jazz music, right? So this, being a Black woman, heading up this vital organization and maintaining, like I said in that tagline, this art form to me is a larger philosophy and a larger mission for Black people.
So what are some of your challenges that you're facing right now?
You know, we face the challenge of any nonprofit, any mid-sized to really small nonprofit, which is ensuring that we have the resources, and I by that I mean money, you know, to keep going. I have an amazing staff. I like to keep them, right. They're passionate, they're skilled, and we all deserve to make a good living at what we do, whether we're musicians, we're nonprofit managers, and to have stellar, amazing programming and pay the musicians well. So that's one of our biggest challenges. We're making it happen, but if there's anything that keeps me up at night, it's certainly not the joy of jazz. It's how are we going to make sure that we can keep this train going. So those are some major challenges, and our donors have been fabulous. The foundation world has been great. Individuals have been wonderful, those that understand why the music is important and why the Jazz Institute does what it does.
You had a program, a tribute to Louis Armstrong, who I see there behind you. Yes, one of the yeah. How was that?
Right. So last year marked the centennial of Louis Armstrong coming to Chicago, coming from New Orleans, you know, at the beck and call of his mentor, King Oliver. But it really was a time in America, as we all know, when a lot of people were leaving the South to come up north for better opportunity, you know, to escape Jim Crow and the terror that our people were going through. We're still going through a lot, but there was so much going on. And, you know, he came up here to have a career in music and really changed the world of music. And, you know, the way that he played, being a soloist, the style that he played in really changed jazz music from that point on. He also met a beautiful woman when he was here, a Fisk University graduate who was a composer and a band leader in her own right, Lil Hardin. And she's the one that said, wait a minute, there's something, you've got a lot of talent. You look a little country, but let's cityfy you. She bought him new clothes. She talked about how he wore hand-me-down clothes and he had bangs. And so she really saw something in him and turned him into the performer and the world impactful musician that we see today. So Lil Hardin was very instrumental in his career and in all the work that he did here in Chicago. So last year we had a series of programs to celebrate Louis and celebrate Chicago.
Okay. Now, I know you had something with Ella Fitzgerald and Louis.
We did. So, you know, a lot of Louis's career was his in the later year, the mid to later years, was the partnerships in the music that he sang with Ella Fitzgerald. And some of those songs are just a part of the Great American Songbook, right? I can remember in college, I went to University of Illinois and I was having a bad day. So I went to the record store on Green Street. All my U of I friends will remember this. And I was like, I need something to get me out of this. And I bought one of the Ella Louis duet CDs at the time. And it just brought me so much joy. So yes, we had a tribute concert as a part of our Jazz City program with Chicago Park District at the South Shore Cultural Center last week with Bruce Henry and Alicia Monique. And they just sang those classic tunes that we remember, not just from Ella and Louis, of course, but also from them as well. So that was kind of our end of year holiday tribute and a way to wrap up our season that we called What a Wonderful World.
What a Wonderful World. I love it.
Right.
So now, yeah, let's look to the future next year. Any special programs planned at this point that you can share with us?
Well, you know, we are so thrilled that last year, well, really this year, we were able to bring the Chicago Jazz Festival back in full after really a 2-year hiatus. We had a year of being online. Last year, we just did one day, you know, we went from 9 stages, 9 hours, 4 stages, 9 hours a day, 4 days to one show, you know, 3 performances just on one stage. So last year we were able to bring about 95% of that back. And so looking forward to doing the Jazz Festival again. The Jazz Institute brought back our club tour, which had been on hiatus since 2017, which is an opportunity to buy 1 ticket and get on buses, luxury coach buses, and visit different jazz clubs downtown and on the South Side. So that is always a lot of fun. We're definitely doing that again. And just some of our education programs. We do a straight ahead jazz exchange, which is kind of like a conference or a camp for music teachers, for educators, for jazz enthusiasts. So working out the schedule, but typically it's 3 to 5 days at Columbia College where you have workshops and opportunities to play. If you play an instrument, we've got combos. So we'll be bringing that back in July.
Okay, all right. So anybody on your wish list for the Jazz Festival for next year? Anybody you just would love to get?
You know, I have to say that the Jazz Festival is programmed by a committee, a Jazz Festival committee with our partners at the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. And we're just starting to meet. I always say we program in the snow. So the snow is coming. The snow is here today. So we've already met once. You know, we're starting to pull together our ideas and talk about who would work and fit it in the budget, right? But you know, we'd love to say that the Jazz Festival is at least 80% local acts. We get our headliners. You know, last year, well, Jasmine Horn being from Chicago, but we get those national acts. Donald Harrison last year, so we have some of those connections, but most of the acts, especially on the side stages and the mornings, are local acts, and that's going to remain something that's important to us this year.
Okay, got it. Now, looking back at your career, you served as the executive director of the Beverly Arts Center, and then you were director at the historic Southside Community Arts Center. How did all those years there help you now, prepare you for what you're doing right now?
The Southside Community Arts Center, it feels a lot in the same way as the Jazz Institute of Chicago in terms of legacy. Having started 80 years ago with the Works Progress Administration with Franklin Roosevelt, and then really the vision continuing with, or really starting with Dr. Margaret Burroughs and so many Black artists of the time, but also throughout its 80-year history. So, I mean, a Southside institution, another thing that has impacted the world. So being at Southside Community Arts Center really just was a part of that whole story for me, keeping history alive, making sure that current artists, I almost said musicians, but visual artists have opportunities, and that the world gets to see the power of Black people and the power of creativity. So that just to me represents the lineage and the importance of Black art. At the Beverly Arts Center, I had a chance to run, a 40,000 square foot space that had everything: 2 theaters, a gallery, a school program, right? In a community that is very proud as well, right? The Beverly community, very diverse community of a lot of people that grew up there. I was a part of the Beverly Arts Center when I went to Morgan Park Academy for grammar school, when it was just a little building on the campus of Morgan Park Academy. So just that feeling of community and arts and so many different kinds of art. And to anybody that's considering a career in arts administration, both of those places really furthered my ability to manage finances, to manage staff, to communicate with the public about the mission of the organization, writing grants, working with membership. So all the same type of skills, those kind of hard skills of leadership or arts administration, definitely got sharpened and developed, over that time. I think that was 10 years ago. It's hard for me to believe, but it was 10 years ago that I started at the Southside Community Arts Center. So it's been about a 10-year career in, arts leadership.
Okay. Now you also work with After School Matters, a program that's dear and close to us. Talk about your work there.
My heart is, over there. And again, a program started as Gallery 37, and I really started at the Park District in 1998 with what they were calling at the time Gallery 37 in the parks. So the Gallery 37 program that started, for those that don't know, on Block 37 downtown, with the vision of First Lady Maggie Daley, First Lady of Chicago. And they were tents set up outside, an apprenticeship program for young people to learn the arts outside from seasoned artists and get paid. And that kind of morphed into Gallery 37 in the Parks, and then became After School Matters, which is where I met the Sandifers, which is a program that still goes on today, a job training program in arts, tech, sport. I don't know if they're still doing sports, technology, been away from there for a while, but just a powerful youth program where the students get paid to learn. So you're in this after school program, but it's really an apprenticeship where you're working closely with professionals and getting a paycheck. And I mean, not only did I learn about partnerships there, and my job was to go into schools and work with our programs and make sure the payroll was set up. I was a program specialist, make sure our partnership was going well. So got to see so many different neighborhoods around the city, right? We have 77 neighborhoods. I counted recently because of my work at After School Matters and the Park District. I've been able to work in 44 of those neighborhoods, like over half. And I have lifelong friendships from that work at After School Matters, whether it was folks I was working with. I mean, this connection here, anytime I see the Sandifers, like, hey, remember those times? How can we continue to help each other out? And I know you probably have some young people that are watching, and that's just such an important thing as you're going through your career, is to think about those kind of connections that you're making, and hold on to the good people, and just make sure that you're keeping them with you and keeping them around you. I can't say enough about my time at After School Matters in Gallery 37 in the Park District.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Now, who or what inspired your passion for jazz and the arts?
I will have to start with my parents. My father specifically, who was, a quintessential jazz head. We would be out places and he would say, I'll give you a quarter if you can name the name of this artist. I do it with my kids too. It's $1 now, but at the time we get a quarter if we could recognize the names. And it was just the music in my house. My dad had the reel-to-reel tapes, and we had these gorgeous wooden speakers in each corner of our living room, up literally on pedestals, those A&R. I can see them now. They were like works of art. They were pieces of furniture. And he would play music for us and teach us about the music. He played one song played by 5 different musicians, and we'd have to listen for the differences, right? And to my father's credit, he would do the same. He would listen to our music. I can remember my brother playing Boogie Down Productions for him and playing scratch, when they first started scratching records. And my father was fascinated. He's like, wait, y'all have made an instrument out of a record? Like you could scratch the record and make it a music? So he gave us voice, right, to express our music as well. If you came to my house when I was a child, visiting my parents, they would let us do plays in the living room. And I know some of her friends were probably like, really, y'all, we got to do this again? But we had an outlet. We went to see plays. And I always tell families, that I recognize that as a privilege, being able to go see plays and having this kind of music in the house. But everyone has a radio. Anyone can have crayons, right? Just giving children the opportunity to have access to the arts. And I think that's what really spurred me on, is that some people may not have the resources to do that or even know that it's possible. Museums have free days, right? Again, just having markers and glue and crayons in the house and turning off the electronics will give your child the chance to be creative. So it's those kind of experiences that made me want to make that possible for everyone, and to be able to give artists a chance to have a career at doing this, because artists are more than worthy, but just unfortunately the opportunity isn't always there.
Right. So who were some of your favorites that you would listen to as a kid?
So of course there was always Miles Davis, John Coltrane. My father was a fan of so many different pianists that we would listen to. Keith Jarrett was big in our house, especially as we got older. Personally, my top favorite is female vocals. So Ella is at the very top of the list. Just her sound, and of course Sarah Vaughan, reflects with that. current day, I love John Baptiste. You know, just his jazz adjacentness. He's got jazz, but he's kind of moving it into modern day innovation. So those are just some of the folks on my playlists.
Okay, okay. Now you have a your master's degree in fine arts acting. Were you considering a career as an actress?
I was, and some of that was because of, like I said, the happy experiences that I had, you know, coming up. And I love acting. And when I graduated from the University of Illinois with my degree in advertising, actually the last year at U of I did a play. There was a lot of Black student unions and Black activist groups on campus, and one of them, the If Not Now movement, they were called, put together a play so that we could talk about, in a creative sense, creative space, our experiences being Black people on a, what do they call it now, predominantly white campus. We didn't call it that at the time, back in the late 80s to early 90s. And so we did this show, and I just had such a wonderful experience. I told my mother, I was like, I think this is what I want to do. She's like, really? I just invested all that money into your advertising degree? What are you talking about? And my parents said, if you're going to do it, don't just try to find gigs and whatnot. Get a degree in it and really learn how to do it. So I did. Then my last year, I took a class in teaching Shakespeare to kids. And I just absolutely fell in love with the idea of, again, sharing how to do the art. I will be on stage again. When I retire, I will be doing Geritol commercials, and you're gonna see me on the screen. But for now, it's very important to me to share like this. I had a children's theater company for a while. I wrote children's plays and produced them on the South Side. So that just kind of all is a part of, how can I share, besides my stellar talent on the stage, you know, how can I share this gift in a way that's going to make it multiply out even more? So that's why the teaching and the arts administration is so important.
Okay. 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 Now, how can we?
I do miss it, though. I do know.
Okay. So now, how can we, the public, help you guys out at the Jazz Institute? Can we do anything? Talk to us.
Absolutely. So of course there is attending our events, again, most of which are free. If you have a young person that's interested in jazz or playing jazz, please get in touch with us so we can connect you with our education programs and our student council. Also, you know, it's end of year, Christmas giving time. So, you know, please do consider a gift to the Jazz Institute. It is highly impactful and makes a huge difference in the work that we do and that we're able to do. And with that kind of donation, there's also membership, right? In addition to feeling great about investing in the future of jazz and making sure that this music continues and that musicians have opportunities and young people have opportunities, we have some pretty cool gifts. We have t-shirts, we have discounts at at the CSO and other arts organizations, discounts when we have merchandise, and, you know, for our gala, and when we do have ticketed events, you'll get a discount. So we just had our member party last week, and it was so cool to see members getting together, talking, laughing, eating, listening to music. So you're really a part of a community of fellow jazz lovers when you become a member.
Right. I can't believe this, but we're out of time. We're out of time. I've enjoyed this so much. Yes. Anything else that you would like to share? Anything else on your mind today?
Visit our website, jazzinchicago.org. We're across most social media platforms. You know, the top 3, we're there. So please visit us and take some time to listen to some jazz today, you all. They're 90.9 radio station. I dare you.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was an honor. Thanks for having me.